well. Hello, welcome to Derps Talk About Games. I'm your co-host, Mango.
And I am your co-host, Buddy.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about Venom, The Last Dance. Before we do that, buddy, why don't you tell the folks at home what it is we do on this podcast?
You know what? On this podcast, we talk about a lot of things, and we've been too on brand, okay, in terms of talking about games. We've talked about a lot of games, okay, over the last couple of months. But part of our whole thing is that we constantly stop talking about games to talk about upcoming and important movies or whatever. But I can't remember the last time we did like a movie episode. This one comes to us recommended by my good friend Jimbo Jambo, who's been on the podcast before. He was on our Matrix episode where we discussed all the different kind of ins and outs of the Matrix movies, and he asked us to review Venom: The Last Dance, which I think we were going to do anyway because we did Venom 1 and Venom: Let There Be Carnage, and so now we're doing Venom 3, directed by Kelly Marcel, written by Kelly Marcel, who famously, I don't know if you know this, wrote the screenplay. Or actually, did she write the screenplay or did she direct the 50 Shades of Grey movie?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Because I know, so she wrote 50 Shades of Grey. Okay, but did not direct it. Okay, cool. But yeah, her big thing is that, she's directing Venom: The Last Dance, a movie that is bad. There you go. It's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
top
I would say
line.
let's give our pre-spoiler stuff. Like, I think I liked it better than Let There Be Carnage, but nothing will, I think, match the kind of like manic energy of the first one.
Honestly, I don't even remember Let There Be Carnage enough to
Yeah.
remember if I would like it more or less, which is maybe pretty damning. I don't think I'm going to remember this movie,
Oh yeah, no,
right?
like I'm struggling to remember the details now because I watched it 2 weeks ago instead of you know
Mm-mm-mm.
instead of this week.
So, okay, here's what I wrote. Here's what I wrote. This is my key insight. Okay, if for those of you who want the some derps talk about games, okay, profundity. If you come to this chat, if you come to this podcast for some profundity, here's what you're getting. Okay, I wrote. Have you ever been at a party where someone pretends to be super stupid and gets them laughed so that they just lean into how stupid they look and sound? And at first it's kind of funny, but then it gets more and more awkward until you just kind of wonder if the very first joke they were really pretending to be stupid or if they were just that stupid like the whole time. That's how I feel about this movie. That's what the Venom series of movies is. They are movies that are so stupid, and the first one I kind of thought was like, wow, this is stupid but actually pretty genius, and at this point I'm just like, this is cringe. Like, this is
Yeah,
deeply.
no, it is it's. I actually think the problem is that the first one was like badly written, but like Tom Hardy hammed it up enough that like it kind of worked, right? But it's the same thing with any of these things, right? Like if you try and do it on purpose, it doesn't work, right? Like
Mhm.
this is everything from Tommy Wiseau that isn't The Room. This is um, you know any number of like bad movies where the people who make it realize they're a cult classic and try and do it again because you can't, right? Like you have to you you can't be in on the joke or otherwise it just doesn't work. And I think I largely agree with that. And on top of that, like I don't know, like it's also just like it's dumb, but not in like it is dumb underneath as well, right? Like there's some stuff that's trying to be dumb, but there's also stuff that's like just dumb, and it's not entertaining dumb, right? It's just kind of
Yep.
like
Though there is some stuff in here that is so stupid that like in a different movie, like in a better movie, I would maybe be going to bat for it and being like, this was so do you know what I mean? It's just um like continuity errors that are
yeah,
just like annoying to the brain. And I'm happy to like pave over those sometimes when like there's cool stuff going on, but there's no cool stuff going on. This whole movie, this is the wild part to me. Which I get. Actually, maybe this is the spoiler thing, so maybe we'll talk about it after
Let's
we
put the
do
spoiler break
spoilers.
here. We don't think
Sure.
don't go watch it.
Don't watch this movie. Don't even watch this movie like at home. Don't waste your time. It's a waste of time movie. When I talk, actually, this is the best example. When I talk about bad movies are not movies that you can sit there and have a 3-hour podcast about, which have been some of the bad movies we've talked about before. Like bad movies that are ambitious, right? Are not the worst kinds of movies. The worst kinds of movies are this. Forgettable. Nothing on the inside, nothing on the outside, just completely hollow, empty experiences. Don't waste your time, right? Okay, spoilers, for real. Null, Knull, is the god of the symbiotes, okay? Who I think was a Thor villain, but this is all after I stopped really reading comics regularly, so I don't super know the context here. I just know Null is, an important character in like the lore of Venom and symbiotes, sort of the reason that Venom and symbiotes exist. We have known that Null was going to be the villain. Passively, I just kind of picked this up off of Andy Serkis is playing Null, who is um, vaguely referenced in the movie. Okay, and in the movie, he is imprisoned. He's been imprisoned by a group of Power Ranger symbiotes who are all each stupider than the last, to be quite honest with you. And these Power Ranger symbiotes have been captured by the United States government or whatever, and all the rest of it. You think that Null is going to be the villain of this movie. That the plot of this movie is that Null spawns this alien attack dog that goes and attacks and finds Venom wherever Venom is, and takes Venom's thing, uses it to unlock Null. Null shows up and bad stuff happens. That's what the movie seems like it's building to. There are references to Venom going to New York, so you think that this is sort of like a road trip movie, but no, it's none of that. The dog is the final boss. This is the thing. It shows up, it kills a bunch of people. The government is involved now in ways that are truly inexplicable given the status of the previous two films. And we all move on with our lives, I guess, and that's fine.
Yeah, no, I didn't even the like the Power Ranger in prison Null. I just thought that like all the symbiotes in prison Null at some point, and you know that's just a fact of life. And then this Codex thing, which is like a baffling kind of like hand wavy point, right? Um, and it ends in a way such that it's like, well, probably should have just killed Venom to start with. It would have saved everybody a bunch of trouble. Would have saved a bunch of other symbiotes. Would have saved a bunch of people their lives, right?
Yep.
Um,
The movie wants me to treat like the emotional relationship between Venom the symbiote and Eddie Brock as like deep and emotional when it is almost entirely played for laughs, which is fine. Like, like there's a part of me that wants to. So I watched a movie this weekend. Okay. Wild Wild West. Not a quality picture, I know. But it has thrown some things in stark relief. The thing that makes a buddy comedy work is you have wildly opposite energies kind of clashing, right? So the reason Wild Wild West, bad movie, but the reason that the relationship works between Artemis Gordon and Jim West, which are the name of those characters, is because Kevin Kline is playing an uptight, intellectual, thinker who wants to be clever and outsmart all of these problems. And Jim West shoots first, shoots some more, shoots a little bit after, and then decides to ask a question or two, as President Ulysses S. Grant says in that movie. Okay. And those two energies clash in an interesting way and make for an interesting contrast, and they are a great kind of buddy cop duo. And you could do something similar with this with Venom, except there's no clash. They're both manic and crazy, and Eddie seems to be trying to rein in, I guess, the symbiote, and the symbiote seems to be kind of going kind of like buck wild all the time, but maybe, but then there are also times when the symbiote is crazy, or I'm sorry, the symbiote is like taking this seriously and trying to convince Eddie to take it seriously because he's being too flippant about it. And I'm just like, what are you even going for here? Like, what are the vibes, right? And I don't know the vibes, and they suck, and so none of this works.
Yeah, not only yeah, no, you're 100% right. Like I don't even know what else to say about it, right? Like it doesn't, like you said, the buddy cop vibes don't work. The like nothing really makes sense, right? Like it's hard to feel bad for Venom when like he refuses to like do like to do the things he needs to do to not get caught, right? Like like dancing with the convenience store owner was like completely pointless, right? Like and
Yep.
just served to get him caught, just served to advance the plot, right? Like
Yeah, so to explain this for the kids in back who are not going to watch this movie on our recommendation, the way the codex works, when Venom transforms into, sorry, when Eddie and the symbiote, we'll call, fuse to create Venom, right? The creature with the big teeth running around in biting people's heads off, right? That activates this beacon that the xenophage, um, can see from a gazillion miles away, right? And the xenophage tracks that beacon and follows it. So Eddie is out of his Venom form because he can't assume the Venom form without activating the beacon. But then Eddie goes to Las Vegas where he meets the convenience store owner from the previous two films, but she has won a bunch of money at the slot machines, I guess. And Eddie doesn't want to dance with her, but the symbiote does. So the symbiote turns them into Venom in order to do this incredibly cringy dance number to Mamma Mia's, or not Mamma Mia, ABBA's Dancing Queen, Mamma Mia's Dancing Queen. Um, and it activates the xenophage, and the xenophage comes, but the person who told us and warned us that you can't do this, we can't assume our true form, was the symbiote in the first place. So it's like, what the fuck are we doing this? This doesn't make any sense. It's
yeah,
it's
I mean,
incomprehensible. Like,
and the codex itself is like I guess like if the symbiote keeps its host from dying, it creates a codex, which I guess is a thing. Do you know anything about the comics with Venom? You know
nope.
how like
I don't know any of this shit. This is all outside of my wheelhouse. I know a little bit. So in the sense of Toxin, who is the green guy, I knew Toxin. Which is there is a symbiotes reproduce sort of asexually. So Venom spawned Carnage. And then Carnage spawned Toxin, which is what we saw in the last movie. When Carnage was killed, Carnage spawned a new symbiote. That symbiote was green. That symbiote is Toxin, who is the symbiote that is like warning everybody of this and gets like paper shredded by the xenophage right away. And then all of these new symbiotes I have never seen or interacted with ever before in my life. I think they're all stupid and dumb and very cringy. And I just feel like I have seen this thing done 4 or 5 times now in like the superhero movie genre of the first movie is a guy get a superpower, and then the next movie is the guy gives the same superpower to a bunch of people. Shazam, for instance, did this. I guess Shazam did this in the first one, right? Shazam spreads the power to all of the different members of the family, um, and they like fight as a team. This is the Venom version of that, which sucks
yeah
and is dumb.
yeah not only that but like also it's not given any room to breathe. Like the whole government thing and like the scientist lady is just stupid, right? Like the scientist lady had a twin brother that died when she got struck by a lightning bolt, but he was holding her hand. And I like maybe that makes sense to me because like it went through him and went through his heart and skipped her heart or something. Like maybe if I think about it, but that's me interpreting it. That's not me like the movie telling me that. It's like, and this gives her symbiote electric powers, I guess somehow, sort of. I don't.
I am now learning that there is a symbiote called Agony, who is the purple symbiote that she becomes, who I've never heard before. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's Agony, I guess.
Yeah, and like she works at Area 50. What 2 is that the joke, right? Like Area 51 is in the process of being decommissioned. Except the military guy is a jackass, right? Like, you know, also their plan doesn't make any sense, right? Like he's like, I'm going to end this, and then he captures both the symbiote and Eddie. When, by all rights, he should have just executed Eddie Brock, right? Like, I don't get the feeling that he has to report up the chain to anyone, or if like he's like supposed to be the person that he says he is, right? It would be one thing if like, you know, he went to do it and somebody stopped him because it's not protocol or anything, but he just kind of captures Eddie Brock, even though he makes it very clear the thing he needs to do is kill Eddie Brock, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, perfect opportunity to do that, right? And just doesn't.
I wonder, the worst part about this, honestly, is that I think it's going to make a lot of money. Um, did it do well at the box office? Let's see. I bet the answer is yes.
It might
Oof.
have.
Yeah. Venom the Last Dance has a great second weekend hold with $26 million. This is truly depressing. So,
I
you
mean,
know,
at some level that makes sense to me though, right? Like, there's not a lot of point in going to a movie theater for like the point of going to a movie theater now is to see big bombastic films, right? Like ones that need the display, right? And you can get brainy ones like that. You can get your Oppenheimers, but like you don't need to see like I don't know, what's like a quiet talking movie that doesn't need a big screen. Like My Dinner with Andre. Not that I've seen that movie. I just know the Community
you've
adaptation,
never
right?
seen that movie?
No.
It's a pretty good movie, to be honest with you.
No,
It's pretty
sure,
funny.
but like something like that, you don't necessarily need to see on the big screen. You can do it probably just as well on your
It
home
is on
system,
Max, and I did watch it on Max, which it should tell you a lot, I guess.
right? But like, so like the movies that you go to see are the big bombastic ones, and most of the general public isn't particularly interested in artsy films, and there's no need to see the artsy films in the theater so much anymore, right? Or like three billboards outside of Missouri or whatever the name of that film was from a number of years ago. You can watch that at home and no one cares, right? Like, what was the competition for this going to be? Megalopolis, I guess.
Yep, like I don't even know. Yeah, yep.
Um, I keep fucking seeing ads for there's a new Santa Claus movie coming out, like Red One coming out
Is
in
it the Mel Gibson one?
no, this is
Oh, it's
the
the Rock one,
yeah, the
right?
Rock and what's his name? The guy who
Oh yeah, J.K. Simmons.
and Chris Evans, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which looks very stupid, but like that one's probably gonna do gangbusters, right? It's coming to theaters, right? It's it's a fun holiday movie. Um,
It's directed by Jake Kasdan. Oh my God, we have to watch this movie now. Jake Kasdan is the Walk Hard guy. He's the Dewey Cox guy.
okay,
I love him. He's he also did the Jumanji movies, which I also loved. Wow. Okay, I'm maybe on board. I am on board with this movie for dumb reasons.
yeah, no, I mean, and like the first time we saw the ad for it, we were also on board with it. But then, like the 80th time we saw it, we've been watching through What We Do in the Shadows on Hulu, and it's got
Mhm.
like 5 different total ads, 3 of which are for like HIV medication, and so the one that sticks in my head is the Red One ad. So there's that, but you know, but like that's my point, right? Like these movies do well because they're good movie theater movies, and that's the only reason why anybody's going to the theater anymore, right? Like,
I also think it's because they're good trailer movies. Venom: The Last Dance. I understand how it makes for a great trailer. I don't, and I understand how like if I were working at a trailer agency, okay, like a PR agency, and someone gave me Venom: The Last Dance and they make a killer trailer out of this, that's not hard because all of the things that are cringe in the moment you can pull out and let people assume the best case scenario for them, right? Venom doing this big dance number. Venom venomizes a horse and a frog and a fish, right? Like you can do a bunch of fun stuff with all that in the trailer, and it'll work. It'll work well, right? It's just that when you actually get to the theater, it's dog shit, and there's nothing. There's just like I said, nothing on the inside, nothing on the outside, just like nothing.
You know what wasn't in the trailer? The scientist or the hippie fucking family, which kept fucking coming back around, right? Like, none of
I
this.
guess they had to have him. They had to have him save lives. I guess I was just like, what is the point of this like hippie family? The not Rocket Man. What's the name of that song? They
Which
sang.
what's
Ground
what?
Control to Major Tom. What's that's the
Oh,
Starman? No,
no, that I think it's Brown or it's isn't it Major
is it
Tom?
called Ground Control to Major Tom? Is it just called Major Tom? It's David Bowie, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just called Major Tom.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's called Space Oddity.
Oh, okay.
Major Tom is a persona of David Bowie referred to in a bunch of different songs, apparently. That song is great. I love that song. But like that moment was, I was just like what was there to it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
and also just kind of like that whole bit was just like Eddie Brock being a dick to this very nice family for like no like real good reason other than for like internal laughs, right? I guess, right? Like, it's I don't
You know
know.
what's funny? The last movie. Now that I'm thinking about it, the last movie that I think watched, or maybe no, wait, hold on, we did Deadpool. But besides Deadpool, I think it was maybe Madam Web, which was earlier this year, right?
Oh
This is
god.
also Sony. What are they doing at Sony? They have the Spider-Man rights, and they keep making the most fucking stupid movies I've ever seen in my life. Like, even the Spider-Man movies, I don't like. I am a hater, even though like a lot of people do, obviously. I get it, like the MCU, but I am a hater of Spider-Man No Way Home, right? I am a hater of the original Homecoming. It was the middle one that I liked with Mysterio. That's the only good one that has been produced by Sony Pictures, right? Like, what else have they done on this stupid fucking label for all of their Spider-Man projects? They're all dog shit.
It's because Morbius was a Sony picture, right? Like,
No, Morbius was a Sony picture. Yes, absolutely. Yes, Morbius was a Sony picture, and it was also dog shit. I guess Spider Verse was good. That maybe counts.
yeah, the
Maybe
two Spider
Craven the
Verse.
Hunter. I like that trailer a lot.
Yeah,
I
I would
feel
say
like
like that trailer had a lot more to it than I expected, right? It looks better than I thought it was going to, but that is
it's
not saying
also yeah, it's R rated. This is the thing that I love about
okay.
it. It's R rated. It looks like it's going to be like, I mean, like John Wick actually maybe a good example. It's like what if John Wick but was in a superhero movie universe
Yeah.
and was related to stupid fucking Spider-Man comics. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, I'm on board for that. That sounds awesome. I love that trailer. But I don't know. All of these movies have been so fucking bad.
Yeah. Shit, I think this is actually an interesting thing, right? Because like I think this movie is better than Madam Web, but I had more fun with how bad Madam Web was. I
I
think.
already don't even know what else there is to talk about.
Yeah. No, you're.
Like,
It's
and
like
I feel bad because this came from a request. Jimmy, I'm sorry. Don't watch this movie. It's not worth your time. I'm sorry.
yeah. No, it's because like with Madam Web we could spend the entire hour talking about like the different mind-bogglingly stupid moments, right? Like,
Yeah.
but there's none of that here, right? It's
Yep.
just it's like bad and mediocre, like stacked on top of each other, right? Like, and who cares? And none of it makes sense. And why, right? Like,
Yep. Also, I'm now looking in Craven the Hunter is being directed by J.C. Chandor, or maybe that's how, I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name, who directed the movie that I've talked about a couple of times on the podcast, Margin Call. Do you remember Margin Call?
I
I'm
haven't
talking about
seen
this
it, but
movie.
I think I remember you mentioning it.
It is an incredibly good movie, and I have weirdly watched. It's not an incredibly good movie. What am I talking about? It is a movie I have watched, and it's compulsively watchable. I don't know why, but it is. The thing that's wild about it is a movie about the 2008 financial crash, told from the perspective of the investment bankers who figure out that the crash is coming and then make the decision to essentially induce the crash, right? Because they are a major investment firm who pull the plug on their uh, mortgage-backed securities, which tanks the mortgage-backed securities market, which causes the death spiral, right? So I likened this at the time to being a movie. I was like, when I talked about this on the cast earlier, I was like, it's like making a movie about like the Great Depression from the perspective of the first stockbroker who the stockbroker who sold first. It's just like a wild way to frame that story, but also it is compulsively watchable. I love watching that movie. I've watched it maybe 10 times since then, because partially because it's just on everything, and I will see it and I'll just click on it when I'm like bored and I'm doing whatever in like World of Warcraft or Diablo or Hearthstone or something, whatever. I'll just click it, but like it's just like I don't know, that's wild. He also did that movie about Robert Redford I talked about a couple of the Robert Redford Lost at Sea movie. But anyway, I don't even know how we're on here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like there's not much else to say about this movie in particular, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
like Morbius had like more to talk about because it was so bad, right? Like it was fun bad. This was like not.
This is probably the word. I probably would say Morbius and Madam Web are better movies. I would say just because they're more memorable, and that's what I think matters most. Morbius and Madam Web gave me stuff to latch on to. I could not. I just don't. I watched the whole movie not that long ago, and it's just there's nothing. They don't have a villain. With Madam Web, I could talk about Ezekiel, and I could talk about what made that character interesting and great. You know what I mean? Because like they actually had a villain who's a real character who was interacting with the heroes, cringe as they were, in a way that made sort of sense, right? This, the bad guy is a big dog that was sent by maybe the villain of the next movie who breaks out of his prison in the post-credit scene.
Does he even technically break out, right? Like he just kind of like says he's going to.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Tom Hardy teleports to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has a 2-minute conversation in the MCU vaguely referencing Thanos, and then snaps back to his own universe for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, like, because like
None
that
of
that's
besides the what's her face? Besides the convenience store owner, there's no supporting characters who show up. Michelle Williams isn't in here anymore.
yeah, yeah. There's just like nothing.
Yeah.
Eh,
Okay, well, this is some derps talking about the movies that Buddy watched on his plane to Montreal and back, okay? I watched Furiosa for like the 100th time. That movie goated. Have you seen it yet? Can we plot? Can we talk about it,
I
please?
have not. Sorry.
Fuck. It's okay. How did that movie tank at the box office and this is about to make $500 million? Kill me. I'm so mad. Uh, what else did I watch on the airplane? I watched Tenet for the first time.
Ooh,
I have tried to watch Tenet 6 times, and it is like it is a wall. It
is
is
the
a
audio mixing as bad on the plane as it is in the theater? What's in the theater?
it's pretty bad. I couldn't understand a lot of the conversation. I am watching a Patrick H. Willems video about it that Patrick H. Willems, famous Derpy winner from 2021, 2022, whatever the year he did the talk show was. That shit was great. He made a video about Tenet called Vibes, uh, vibes based movies. And he called Tenet a vibes based movie, which is a movie where it doesn't really matter what's going on a plot level or like a dialogue level. You don't really have to comprehend the dialogue. You don't really have to comprehend the mechanics of the thing. You just kind of have to get the movie's vibe, which I am tentatively willing to grant is a real category of movie, in the same way that he also invented kind of gonzo movies. Gonzo movies being these movies that are like so big and out there and wild and crazy that they just grab your attention to no uncertain level. Aquaman being one of the famous ones that he sort of referenced. He also referenced Mad Max Fury Road. I also see you in the chat, Lou. We'll talk about Furiosa in a second. And I'm willing to maybe grant that Tenet is a vibes movie, because I actually did quite like Tenet. But mostly I liked it on that level, like just on that level of vibes. I didn't super track the overarching plot, but I did track the minute to minute plot. And what that movie does quite well, in my opinion, is sort of create these set pieces next to each other, which is like, where are we going next? India. There's an arms dealer. We have to break into his impenetrable high rise. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to bungee jump ourselves up the skyscraper, and then in order to get out, we're going to bungee jump ourselves down the skyscraper. It's like, that's cool. They crash an airplane into a hangar in order to do this thing, and they can't breathe, and the lockpick breaks. All of that was tense. I was just writing like that kind of like moment for it. This is sort of like what I would consider to be the same level of that the Matrix sequels kind of like work on. Where like the first time, you just kind of watch them, you just kind of having a good time, and like there are a lot of thematic implications, and I do quite like that stuff, and I have gone like depth into it or whatever. But like I would say that I just had a fun time watching the Matrix like Reloaded, just on the level of that car chase highway sequence is awesome in
See,
that movie.
I'm going to disagree with you in that I think that like the Matrix Reloaded is the most cerebral of the three and is trying to like say philosophical stuff and mix it in. I don't think that Tenet really is like Tenet is
Interesting.
Tenet to me, like the thing I couldn't decide when I watched it the first time if I thought it was good or not. Like if I thought if like the main character is named the protagonist, right? And I thought like maybe the bad mixing was kind of the point. Like you don't actually need to understand what's happening. You just kind of like gotta like see the archetype and see like the tropes happening, and it. And it's not important what the little parts are, right? Because you can feel the through your way through the story, because it's kind of like it does some unique things in the individual plot elements, like you're saying, moment to moment. But the overall plot, right, like is just a stock plot that you just kind of follow along, right? Like the good guy wins, right? Like there's tension, right? Like and it's got this time travel kind of thing, but that's it. Also, weirdly, feels like it's set up for a sequel hook, right? Like I felt like that I came out of that movie thinking there was going to be like another couple of these, where like the thing that happens at the end is the protagonist figures out how to like actually change the time loop to keep Robert Pattinson from dying in the first movie, right? Like that's what I thought. Spoilers for Tenet, I guess. Sorry. But like, I don't know. It just kind of felt. I feel this way a lot about time travel movies, where they substitute confusion for sophistication, right? Like Primer, famous time travel movie. Have you seen Primer?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, people rave to me about Primer. I think it's just like I think it just explains itself poorly. Like that's like the whole thing, right? Like it's just confusing, and so it's like, man, it's deep and well written. No, it's just confusing, and on top of that, they explain it poorly, right? Like that's how I feel about most time travel stuff here, right? It's kind of like because time travel is so weird, right? Especially in this case where it's reverse time, right? Like like things apply when it's convenient for them to apply and not otherwise, right? Like like this kind of like, oh, you can't breathe the air because the molecules are backwards, and fire burns cold or whatever. It's like, that doesn't make sense if you think about it for more than like 15 seconds, right? Like,
so okay, so the level of vibes movie that I may be working on is actually more like puzzle box in a way. I described this is another classification that I came up with, the puzzle box movie when we talked about Bad Times at the El Royale, right? I've never watched that movie again. I like that movie a lot when we watched it, right? But the whole point of watching it was trying to decipher the Rubik's cube faster than the 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 director was solving it in front of your face, right? You were watching the director solve a Rubik's cube and you have your own Rubik's cube, metaphorically speaking, in your hands, and if you can figure it out, you get to feel smart. And that was happening to me in Tenet all the time, right? Like Tenet is the kind of movie that was rewarding me when I noticed things like the mirror on the car was broken, which was just shown for a split second or whatever, but you're like, oh hey, that's something happened, something's inverted, right? Or you see inversions that don't make sense and you don't know why, but I'm just like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. Something they're going to travel back through this scene because that car isn't a random interaction, it's inverted, right? And so like once I was on that level with the movie, that's when I was vibing with it. Do you know what I mean? But I wasn't really thinking about it in terms of like an overarching sense. I was only
Sure.
really thinking about it in solving like the minute to minute puzzle. For instance, I knew immediately when Robert Pattinson ripped the hood off the guy and pointed the gun and then prevented John David Washington from shooting the other guy, right? I was like, wait, that's got to be
Yeah,
like
it's
like
them,
it's
right?
got to
Yeah,
be them in reverse, right? That they are inverted traveling back, right? Which you didn't know at the time people could invert, but by this point, by the point they reveal the turnstile mechanic, and I'm just like, oh, I get it. Right, like that's kind of the level that I'm on. I also think I just like at the moment, this is part of what I love so much about Furiosa, okay, which is maybe a good transition point. I am so in love with movies that don't over explain their fucking world building to you. I think if I watched Inception these days, like today, for the first time, I would be annoyed by how much that movie really explains its mechanics to you. I love that Tenet shows you the turnstile thing in the middle of this tense hostage negotiation where what's the guy's name? Like Styler or something like that, right? Like he's holding the gun to his estranged wife's kidney or something like that, and he's threatening to shoot her, but he's inverted, right? And you don't quite understand what's going on, but you see in the back of the room there's the turnstile, which is something you've seen earlier, and they then reference it and call it a turnstile, and you have to be the one to put the pieces together to go bop 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 bop. Oh, this is what the turnstile is. This is the mechanic of how it works. You watch yourself enter the turnstile, and that's how you know that you have successfully inverted yourself so that you can now start traveling back through time, right? And like, I don't know, that stuff I was just like on board with. I love that shit.
you see, I think I would have liked it better if they had explained less because I still think it goes too far, right? Because I don't like Inception because it does explain itself too much and nothing makes
Mm.
sense if you think about it because it doesn't match with the explanations they give you, right? Like there is no reason for the top to work, right? Like it's like they went backwards from the top, right? Like the way the totems are supposed to work, it's a thing that only you know, and so when it's assigned some sort of default value in the dream, right? Like you can tell because it doesn't match its real world characteristics, right? Because no one, because like it is being manifested by the person's dream, right? Tops don't spin forever in the fucking real world, right? Like the only way that that works by its own rules is if the top spun forever in the real world and fell over in a dream, right? Like, right? If the argument is that top spin forever in a dream, that should work for any top. It shouldn't have to be a totem. It should just be a top.
Also, it's you just to piggyback onto this point. It's logically inconsistent because you later learn that people can fill dreams of which they are inhabitants with the their stuff, right? So for instance, one of the big reveals like later on is the way that Leo and them are able to sort of like manifest like weapons and technology and all of this stuff because he is sort of imposing his will on whatever the dreamer guy's named dream is. So by that logic, when Leo reaches which is to say, when Leo reaches into his thing and pulls out a gun to start shooting back at the guys who are shooting at him, he is manifesting the gun, right? Like he is inducing the dreamer to manifest the gun. The gun would not exist without Leo telling the dreamer to manifest the gun. But so when Leo pulls the top out of his thing isn't he inducing the dreamer to create the top according to his specifications? Like, wouldn't the dreamer then know that it's a top that never falls because Leo is inducing the dreamer to supply the top that is his totem? It's just like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Especially because if you're reaching in to pull out the top, you don't know whether or not it's a dream in the first place because that's what the totems are for. Anyway, whatever. The fact that these shit doesn't make sense doesn't matter. I just vibes. I'm just trying to vibe with these movies.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. And, I mean, I guess that's part of the problem. It's like my what's it called? My what's the word? What's the disillusionment or disbelief? What's the term that I'm not saying?
Suspension of
Yes, my
suspension of disbelief.
My suspension of disbelief is not nearly so strong as yours, and so like these things that don't make sense annoy me, and so I don't know, I thought Tenet was okay. I didn't like Inception, you know, all that jazz.
Part of it, I think, is also just really liked John David Washington in that role. He's so charismatic. I just love him so much. He carries that movie star personality that is kind of, it's like arcing towards what Ryan Reynolds and kind of The Rock would end up doing later on in their careers. But veering away at the last second is maybe how I would call it, right? The Rock, the thing that annoys me about The Rock and Ryan Reynolds is they are playing kind of their persona who is sort of bigger than and outside of the movie and commenting on and being snarky about the movie that they're in a way, right? Which takes me out of the experience, and I don't like it when they're doing that shtick anymore. I used to like it. I thought it was fine in Deadpool. I thought it was fine in some earlier stuff with The Rock. Like Jumanji actually would be a good example of this. But I'm just not. That has run its course. I don't like it anymore. I want them to go back. Right. John David Washington is like snarky and funny and charismatic and snappy, but he reminds me of 2000s era Will Smith. Right. This goated era of Will Smith, where he also had that kind of vibe, but he was always rooted in the world of the movie, kind of the fiction of the movie, which I like.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It's fitting for Deadpool. Yeah, it is very fitting
Yeah,
for Deadpool.
I think it works for Deadpool, and I think that like for all that we hated, guy or whatever, nice guy or like the computer.
Oh yeah, Free Guy.
Free guy. For all that we hated that movie, I think he wasn't too obnoxious in that role. It just was like a bad movie.
This is why I liked Black Adam, right? The Rock was the opposite of his normal persona for Black Adam, which is kind of all I needed to get carried to the other end of that, to the other end of that movie, right? So yeah, I definitely feel you. Okay, I watched some more planes on the pod, some more movies on the plane. One of which is Ambu LA Ants, as it is called, which I am excited to talk about. But there's also Furiosa, which Lou in the chat is mad about. Lou said, "I'm sorry, what? Furiosa is goaded," and then she said, "Put me in the podcast. I will argue that on that. I will argue against you on that until my throat is raw." So I don't know. What are you more interested in? What do you want to talk about?
I mean, I haven't seen Furiosa, so I don't want to hear you argue and wait 10 seconds for Lou to respond. Lou, we'll make sure to address this at a future time when I can.
I just have to say, Furiosa, I keep watching it. It is compulsory. I can't stop myself from watching it. I've watched it probably 6 or 7 times by now. Obviously came out earlier this year. Great on that plane. I loved watching it on the fucking plane. So good that it was ripping me away from the I was playing Balatro.
Uh,
Because it was on mobile, so I was just like, I'll play it on Balatro, or I'll play Balatro and I'll just like watch a movie. And I was like, oh, new releases, Furiosa, whatever. And then I started Furiosa, I was playing Balatro, and then I just kept watching the movie, which is probably the best. I mean, people understand how addictive Balatro is. Everybody says it's like super great or whatever else, right? Like, yeah. Anyway, Ambu, I just want to talk for a minute about Ambu LA Ants. This movie. Okay. I don't even know where to start. Have you ever heard the phrase, losers whine about their best, winners go home and fuck the prom queen? Do you know what that's a quote from?
I don't know what that's a quote from, but it sounds about right.
Oh, the next podcast, Lou and Buddy argue whether Furiosa is good or not, and at the end, Mango decides whether he wants to see it. Okay, so not Furiosa, Ambulance Ants. That quote, "Losers whine about their best, winners go home and fuck the prom queen," is spoken by Sean Connery in the 1995 cinematic classic The Rock. Okay, starring Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage. Okay, directed by a young, upcoming director of, I think, commercials is where he got his start, Michael Bay. All right. In the movie, in the 2023, 2020, yeah, there's 2023, 2022, whatever, one of those years, movie Ambulance, but with, in all the posters, it's Ambu-LA because the LA is sort of highlighted, so I say Ambu-LA Ants because I think that's funny, okay? The whole plot of this movie starts because one character in the fiction of that movie quotes that line to the other character, right? That line being, "Losers whine about their best, winners go home and fuck the prom queen," which I actually do quite enjoy as a line. I think that's a good life philosophy. I know a lot of losers who constantly whine about their best, and honestly, I just want them to. It's just like, yeah, you wouldn't be like. Yes, this is real. This is like a real thing that happens to people, right? So, in the movie, in the fiction of the movie, okay, it's a bank robbery. It's a bank heist going on, okay? And two cops drive by the bank. Two LAPD officers drive by the bank. And one of them says to the other, "Man, there's a teller in that bank who I think is so pretty, and I really want to ask her out." And and then the guy goes, "You know what? We can pull over. We'll go in and do it, right?" And then the other guy goes, "Yeah, I'm like, no. I mean, come on. Like, she's probably not even whatever." And then the second guy goes, "Come on, man. Haven't you ever heard this saying? Losers, losers whine, winners go home and fuck the prom queen, or winners fuck the prom, whatever the line was, kind of thing." And the guy goes, "Oh yeah, from The Rock." And the guy goes, "Yeah." And then they turn around, and the police officer goes up to the bank in the midst of it getting robbed, and walks into the bank and starts the whole cascade of the plot, because the plot of Ambulance is that there's a bank robbery. The bank robbery goes wrong. There's a huge shootout. A cop gets shot. That cop, actually, who goes into the bank, gets shot in the chest. And then two bank robbers hijack the ambulance that cop is being taken out of, and it becomes a car chase movie all throughout the streets of Los Angeles. Okay, this movie is directed by Michael Bay. Okay, so the plot of the movie Ambulance is started because he is quoting his own movie, which is such a baller move. Okay, and then the movie becomes a rip-roaring action extravaganza that does one of the things I have seen. Two things that make it special. Okay, thing number one, it uses drones as drones. The person who put a camera on a drone and gave it to Michael Bay and was like, "Here, use this to make your shots." That person is the smartest guy in the cinema of the 2010s, okay? Because Michael Bay has always had sort of an eye for the movement of camera. His famous shot, right, is the camera spinning around someone as they're rising into the frame. There's a bunch of these over the course of his history. He loves these kind of like big parallax spinning, realization kind of shots. His sort of uh, uh, mode of thinking with the camera is so different compared to, it seems like, everybody else who is using drones. Because most of the way that drones are used for camera right now is just helicopter shots. They're just a cheaper, more straightforward way to get a helicopter shot. No, 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 no. Michael Bay hired the winner of a drone racing competition in Southern California as his camera operator. So the drone is constantly doing all these things with the camera, like zooming up the side of a building and then turning on a dime and zooshing down. There's a whole point where there's a chair. They're in this like warehouse. There's a shootout that's about to happen. There's a chair. The back of the chair is open, and it's probably, it's maybe like the size of the frame, actually. The frame of my body right now, for those who are watching the podcast on YouTube, it's basically this size. The drone flies through that thing in the chair as it's showing you this crazy shootout with like a Latino gang in like this warehouse, and it's amazing. It's just great. It's so good, and I love everything about it. And the second thing that this movie does that so few other movies do is it is accurate and authentic to the geography of Los Angeles, which is wild. I've never seen this before in my life. Every time I ever get on one of these LA movies, like New, we always talk about how they teleport, right? So
Sure.
for instance, in Fast and the Furious, one of my favorite films, okay, love these Fast and Furious movies. Up the street from my house is where they have the first street race. The street that they're racing on is 120th Street, right? I recognize the block, like I said, up the street from my house. Then the cops come and Vin Diesel and Brian O'Connor, right there, they're scattering or wherever. There's a part where Dom parks his car and he gets out, but then there are cops were chasing the street racers and they see Dom, and then Dom has to go get into Brian's car and they drive away. There's also there, and I know that intersection, and that intersection is Third Street, okay, and Third Street is obviously 117 street blocks away from where 120th Street is. It's ridiculous. If I were to drive that right now in this traffic, it would take me an hour and a half to get from onto 120th Street to 3rd Street. But in ambulance, they go from downtown LA down the 110 west on the 105 towards the airport. They get off and turn around in the streets underneath the massive big overpasses for the 105 and the 4. This is where like a big climactic piece of happens. They get back on the 105 east, go back up into East LA, where they get off of the highway and go into the LA River in order to lose the cops, and that's where sort of all of this like final showdown stuff is kind of like happening. And all of the geography is authentic. That like as they are moving through these different locations, you're watching them take shots, and the shots are where they like even the transition shots of like they are cruising down the 110, they don't cut to shots of the ambulance cruising on the 105. They cut to shots of it on the 110. When it takes the turn onto the 105, they show that turn specifically, which is a turn I've gone time. It's crazy. I'm sorry. Ambulance, I don't know why this has activated me in such an incredible way, but it was a revelation. Is what I'm trying to say. And there you go. That's
I'm glad. I'm glad that we had our own version of SNL's The Californians on our on our show. I honestly
would be really interested to take a look to see what other movies are like that are authentic to the geography of like a city like
I would
that.
say most of them aren't because it doesn't matter and no one cares, right? Like, right? Like at some level, what difference does it make, right? Like,
I mean that is fair. That is
also the answer is it doesn't matter because it's establishing shots of the city and then it's in Toronto, right? Like, or something like that.
Yeah. Or in Montreal, okay? Honestly, probably the most wild thing about going to Montreal was how much I recognized the skyline.
Oh, okay.
From those establishing shots. There are a couple of buildings that when you don't know the city are blasé. You don't whatever, right? But when you see it's sort of like obviously like the Empire State Building is really iconic, right? And like, there's a couple of buildings in New York City we would consider to be really iconic, like the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building, right? But let's pretend that New York wasn't an important like location. If somebody had just shown me the New York City kind of like skyline, and I had seen the Empire State Building, but not really thought about it all that much. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would have just been, oh, I get it. This is a big city. But then you see it, and and you realize, oh, the Chrysler Building. That's like a really uniquely that building looks really unique, right? I understand the look and feel of that building in a way, and that's exactly what happened to me in Montreal. Is like once I got there and I saw the skyline for myself, I was like, oh, I get it. I recognize this building. There's one building with like a V and then lights that shoot into the sky, and I've seen that like a dozen times in a bunch of different movies, right? But then I was like, oh, that's like a real iconic building, I guess.
Sure, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen What We Do in the Shadows?
I've watched not the most recent season, so
Okay.
I watched. Or how many seasons? It might be the most recent 2 seasons.
Yeah, the 6th season is currently ongoing.
Oh, geez, maybe I have seen. So what have I seen? Have you seen Jackie Daytona?
Yeah.
Okay, Jackie Daytona. What
I
season
mean,
is that?
I've
Do you
seen
know?
all but the 2 most recent episodes, so yes.
Oh, really? You're all the way caught up?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe 3. I don't know when the new one drops, but I'm pretty well caught up for. I mean, I'm in the current season.
Yeah. Okay. I think I've seen the first 3 seasons. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. No. So that's what I've been watching. It's been a good time. Uh, which is I don't know, and this is inside baseball, but most of the people who listen to this are pretty inside baseball. A couple weeks ago during raid, I called werewolves like something like like dirty flea, flea bags or something like that, and you're all like, "What?" And it's like I was being Laszlo from.
I do love him. Have you ever seen the boat race? Do you know what the boat race is?
No,
Let me
like
see.
I'm familiar with Matt Berry, right? Like I watched all of the IT crowd before you know
There is this YouTube video that I consider to be uh iconic called Matt Berry does number 1 the boat race, which I guess is not all that well known because I'm now looking at it and it only has 4.5k views. I don't know who started me on Matt Berry does the boat race. But it's just the way that he pronounces things is wild to me. And so yeah.
no, absolutely. That's like my version of this is the clip from the IT crowd where he like it's his father's funeral and he just like kicks open the door and yells "Father!" and just like runs down the aisle, right? Like this. It's he is quite an actor. I need to hunt down Garth Marenghi's Dark Place because I want to see that. Please watch the boat races. I will
Should we
watch
react
the
to it
boat
on the stream?
races.
We can play it in like OBS. I think about him saying mallards all the time. So the way that in the chat Rachel said mallards, that's the way that he says like the word mallards. It's stuff like that. I think about him saying, "I'm just a normal human guy from Arizona." Like,
New York City. It's
yeah,
like-
yeah. Actually, you know who's the unsung hero? This is my big hot take about what we do in the shadows. I think, and it's honestly depressing because I can't remember his name. Nandor?
yeah, Nandor the
Nandor?
Relentless.
Yeah, Nandor
Nandor the
is
Relentless.
actually yeah, Nandor is the heart of that show.
Oh yeah.
Nandor is what makes that whole show tick because he does the Luke Skywalker thing that we always talk about. He carries the whole plot, and everybody just gets to be fun and wild in like the background as like Nandor is the one who is sort of driving things forward, and I just love that. I
Yeah,
love it.
sometimes it trades off between him and Guillermo. Like Guillermo gets more of the action in the
Yeah.
later seasons, and they start doing like an A plot B plot thing a little. Like they always do that, but like it gets shared around a little bit more towards the end of it. Like, oh, you've only seen the first 2 seasons. You haven't seen what happens at the end of the. Do you know what happens to Colin Robinson? And I think it's the 4th season, maybe the 5th season.
I remember. I guess these are some light spoilers. I'm so sorry. The maybe last sort of plot related thing is I remember Guillermo killing like a million vampires and going on the run, but he doesn't actually go on the run. He's just in the house, right?
Yeah,
Is this
yes.
season 2, season
That's
3?
the end. That's the end of season 2 or 3. Yeah, that's like the last. That's the final episode of one of them. Yeah, I think it's the
Okay.
second season. It's the final episode of season 2 because the first season is um they get sentenced to death because of
Oh, because they killed the Nosferatu guy.
yes.
Or no, that's the second season.
No, killing. No, the
The
Nosferatu.
end of the first season is they killed the Nosferatu guy, right?
No, Baron Alphanos. Like Guillermo accidentally kills him, right?
Yeah.
The end of the first season is they are. Oh, yes, no. Guillermo accidentally does that. And so the end of the first season is them on trial for that, I think. The end of the second season is they all get trapped. No, they all get trapped because they escape their fate, right? Like Colin and Guillermo get them out of the well. And this is the end of the second season is Guillermo killing a bunch of vampires in the theater because they have essentially trapped the three our three main characters, our
Okay,
four
and
main
then
characters.
the third season is Guillermo living in the house, but they're not actually, and they're all like having a hard time dealing because he's like on the run from killing all these vampires, right? Something about that.
Something like that. I don't remember
Okay.
the exact plot lines, but like the end of the end of one of the seasons ends with like I don't want to spoil it for you. Uh, but it
I think I might know because you mentioned Colin Robinson. He dies, right? I don't know that I saw that, or I don't know if it was spoiled for me. Is that what you're referencing?
yes, but the next season is like he's in the last season, right? Like
Oh,
he's in all the ads for it. So like I'm not like if you go and watch it now, the opening will be like Colin Robinson in a scene from the sixth season, because it's him dancing with the zombie, which is a point in the in the last season. But like the entire fourth or fifth season is do you care? Can I just is
sure, go for it.
yeah is Colin Robinson like regenerates into a baby with Colin Robinson's face, and Matt Berry like raises him like a father. That's like that's his entire plot that season. Yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah, um,
that's wild.
yeah, and it's pretty good, right? Like and it's kind of it goes back and forth between like kind of like like it's just zany batshit shit, and they can kill people, right? It's all, but then like you get these like real moments of emotion, right? Like the last episode of Colin Robinson growing up is kind of a gut punch, and I won't give that away, but it's just kind of like, huh, and but it's a good show, right? Like I love all the characters. I am working on my Naja accent because I am playing a D&D character with a Greek accent. Um,
That's awesome.
but yeah, no, I absolutely absolutely
Have
adore
you ever
that
seen
show.
Four Lions? Have we ever talked about Four Lions on the podcast? Do you know?
For
Do you know this movie, Four Lions?
mm,
It's like jihadists in. It's a very British movie. It's a British movie about. It's like it's a British movie that is a mockumentary about four Islamic terrorists in the UK, and they're trying to pull off like a 9/11 but in the United Kingdom, but they're bumbling and bad about it. It's like it's kind of it's I mean, I don't know. It was from like 2011 or something like that. Like and it kind of got some like bad taste at the time, but it's where Riz Ahmed came from. If you remember Riz Ahmed, because the actor who played Nandor also came from that movie.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say
That was like his.
I recognize what's his name K-Van or something like that.
Yeah. That
Uh,
movie is amazing. That movie is so fucking funny. But you also have to be pretty edgy to enjoy that movie. Like, if you're the kind of person who can't enjoy a good 9/11 joke, then like probably, like it's not gonna be for you.
yeah, I feel like the same thing's pretty true about what we do in the shadows, although it's a little bit less, a little bit more just kind of like gross than it is particularly edgy, right? Like, and not even that gross, just kind of like over the top. But yeah, no, that has been the thing that I've been watching. It's been great. It's been so much fun.
All right, so because normally it seems like you guys jump between. Are you just obsessed with it, so you're watching them
Oh,
all?
so
Yeah.
because I still don't have like
Oh, you still don't have the max
max
password.
yeah, so we decided to just beeline through because it was Halloween, right? And it's like, well, we're here, we might as well finish it, right? Um, along with Bake Off. Do you watch Bake Off?
Mm-mm.
Uh
I did watch the funniest. I have to give a lot of credit here. I did watch the funniest food show ever, which is called something that I don't remember, and it's on Dropout. You know Dropout, right?
yeah, I know Dropout.
Are you a Dropout gamer? What do you think of Dropout in
I
general?
dropped my subscription and don't care.
Wow. Okay.
I like I when Mike stopped being the host of actually I just stopped caring, and
Okay.
I like kept my
So
subscription.
Gastronauts is the show. Rachel showed me the first episode of Gastronauts, which I thought was horrendously funny. Okay. The premise of Gastronauts is you know how on something like Bake Off, what you do is you get a bunch of amateurs who are going to be baking the cake and then being judged by celebrity chefs. Okay. Gastronauts is the opposite, okay? The judges are members of the Dropout cast, okay? And the contestants are celebrity chefs, like really crazy high-end, chefs who feature on these shows. And what the contestants are doing is competing to answer the frankly ridiculous requirements of the chefs. So for instance, Brandon Lee Mulligan, famous Dropout guy, is in the first episode, and the thing he asked the chefs to do is to bake him or make him the heaviest dish, okay? Because he's like, this is gonna be the best. Make me the heaviest thing you could possibly think of, and that's what will win, right? So now you have these like insane, super amazing chefs doing all this like crazy high-end chef stuff, but they are literally just trying to like answer super dumb criteria from these, like these three cast members who are not, asking for crazy food stuff. One of the other ones asked for an action. He was like, my favorite lunch was playing with my action figure while I ate my lunch. I want you to make me an action figure, make me a lunch I could play with before I eat it, right? It's like stuff like that. And seeing them, answer the challenge is pretty.
Sounds like a good time. Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth a Dropout. I don't have a Dropout subscription, but Rachel does. So that's how we watch all of these things. So I don't know if it's worth a Dropout subscription one show, but
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where like I like Brandon Lee Mulligan. I like Zach Okayama.
I like Zach.
And like I think it's Josh Sawyer, maybe. The he's one of the funny sounding ones. Like the one that
yeah.
But like everyone else I could basically like take or leave, and so it's just like not worth it for me to maintain my subscription to see like Brendan Lee Mulligan once every like 3 episodes on something.
Zach Oyama is so fucking funny. Yeah, I also like Grant. I like Grant Anthony O'Brien. I think he's like.
Okay, is he?
A couple of the other ones. I like Allie. I like what's the? Oh man, this is gonna sound racist. What's the Asian girl?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
Josh Rubin. Yeah, exactly.
Josh Rubin is who I was thinking of. Yeah. But
Josh
yes.
Rubin. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of ones that did the. Have you ever listened to any of the musical episodes? Do you know about Welcome to Mountport?
Yeah. Yes.
That episode is goated. That's like the funniest thing I've ever listened to on Dropout. I feel like.
Yeah. Welcome to Mountport worked, but I think they tried to follow it up with like a different one. Like they tried to do it again, and it just didn't work as well. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Like yeah. That's my that is my feeling about a lot of it is like like make some noise, right? Like I only like it when it's the 3 original guys that are doing. Like I liked it better when it was once a season thing on Game Changer rather than when it was its own show, because I think the only people I particularly enjoy doing it are, I think it's Brennan, Zach, and Josh, right? Like Erika Ishii is the person you were talking about.
Oh my god, she's the one that didn't she just get announced as a thing? As a voice actress for a video game. Everybody's fucking mad about it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
God, it's the what's that game you wanted me to play? Samurai Assassin's Creed. That's not Samurai Assassin's Creed.
Oh, Ghost of Tsushima.
Right, but okay, the second one
is she's a woman,
and she's a woman, and she plays the voice actress.
Yeah. Neat. Very cool. Oh, she's also apparently Valkyrie in Apex Legends. Oh, she's Anna Bray? I didn't realize that. From Destiny.
Wow. Okay. Is she the one that I'm talking about? Because yes. I like her a lot.
The Asian girl with like the fade. Or not the fade, I don't know if that's the right term. The shaved side of her head.
Ooh, Worlds Beyond Number. Yes, with the shaved side of her head. Yes. Worlds Beyond Number made me dislike Erika, to be honest. Wow.
Who is she? Oh, she's apparently female Rook in Veilguard.
Yeah. I am so excited for Veilguard. Are you a gamer? What do you think, this is like a me-coded game, not a you-coded game, I feel like.
I've been playing Veilguard, and it's like a worse God of War Ragnarok.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Like I think the character writing isn't great. I think the codex entries are fine, right? Like, are good, right? Like, that's like the stuff they're good at. But like, I keep going back and forth as to whether or not I'm going to keep playing it. But I have kept playing it, right? Like, but it's at the, on the one hand, I enjoy that it's kind of like this limited levels. Like, you play through what are effectively levels with some branchingness to them. It's like, but it's also like, it's like, so the thing says to go in this way, so I have to go in every other direction to find all the things. And at some level, I like started being resentful of it. It's just kind of like, it's like, yes, I'm going to go around the corner and find the secret because I feel compelled to, but I'm
But
not.
also, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I understand that. I understand that for sure. Yeah, I have had a lot of conversations recently, just like internally in my, I guess, my professional life, about some of that stuff, which I think is kind of interesting. Like the nature of sort of AAA, not quite open world, but like but a little bit open world. I mean, because my understanding is this came up because Veilguard did away with some of the like little objective tracker checklist things that were happening in. Do you remember in Inquisition? You know, these kind of open
I am
world
playing a ton of
areas.
Inquisition, so I don't.
Yeah, it's like people talk like the Ubisoft checklist because it'll
Right.
be like there are 10 treasure chests, 5 guys who you have to defeat in duels, 6 thingy majigs or whatever, and like it just and it's like musical notes that you need to get, and it'll give you a song in the soundtrack or something like that or whatever. Dragon Age Inquisition had quite a lot of these, but people have said that Veilguard has done away with that, which I'm happy about in a certain
Sure.
sense because the reason I care about Dragon Age is I like the world and I like these characters, right? I want to play with my buddy Varric in my party again and hang out and have a good time, right? I want to run into you know companions from previous games because oh man, I fucking love Dorian. What are you up to, buddy? Oh, you're being whatever. Like that's the thing I'm here for, kind of thing. I don't really care about like getting the you know the little there's a chest counter in each. Okay, fine. But anyway, so I've been talking a lot about the nature of this stuff, which I think is kind of interesting because on one hand, the interactivity of games is one that allows for different play experiences for different people in the sense of there are people who like to 100% complete games and for those people something like Assassin's Creed Valhalla did a lot of these. Those chests were little puzzles, right? All of the chests in all of the treasures on your map in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, when you went there, it's a little platforming puzzle. There's a tower, you can see the chest. The chest is behind a locked door, and you have to figure out a way where you can like like shoot an arrow at a lever or something to open the portcullis, something like that. It's like and those little challenges, like I like that quite a lot. I thought those were fun, right? But there are a lot of people who resented them because it's like, yeah, you know what, man, don't just give me the fucking chest, okay? I came to the map marker, god damn it, or whatever. And so anyway, I think that stuff on like a UX kind of level is kind of neat.
Yeah, no, and like there's a level of kind of like, what you want out of the game. The problem for me is that like it is like kind of like it doesn't have the good depth of combat that God of War does, right? Like
Oh, interesting.
they kept me going back, right? Like they kept me really drawn in. And then it also does like it's it's this thing where like, you've got kind of like everything's got like set dressing, but you're clearly like going down like a path, but like it's not as like well defined as God of War was, and in little ways, right? Like I've like gotten caught on edges, and like I feel like I can um jump over things and just lose the trust as someone who's never played of God of War. What do you mean? Um, so and I'm talking about 2018 and Ragnarok.
Yep.
Essentially you have like semi-open worlds. It's actually very much in form like Inquisition, right? Or not Inquisition, Veilguard, right? Like, like the worlds look a little bit open, or the areas look a little bit open, but really you've got like a handful of paths to go down and like very specific secrets to, or like backtracks and like secrets to hit in each area, and that's fine. But I don't think it does it as well as Ragnarok does. And on top of that, like, and maybe just because I'm still towards the opening, like there are pieces that are locked off that just feels kind of like, I see a chest, right? A chest that I can't get to right now because I'm not far enough along in the story to do it. Um, but I also don't really have a way to mark it, and like it just feels kind of bad. And like there was a moment where like I went right when I was supposed to go left, and at one point a big glass like crystal thing just popped up. It's like you can't go here now, right? And those haven't been. There's only been like two of those, I think, but it's still kind of like immersion breaking, right? Like usually they're at least good about like putting a person there so it's like vaguely diegetic instead of like really obnoxious. But um,
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to be able to dig into Velgard. My thinking is maybe you're going to be around sort of the Thanksgiving break because
okay,
it just might be the time where, because part of it is that so I went to Montreal. Obviously, I kind of lost that whole week, and so when I came back, I didn't want to just like no light. I feel like if I'm gonna play Veilguard, I want to. Do you know what I mean? And I
sure,
didn't want to just no life it because I had all this WoW stuff I wanted to do. I did. I wanted to get my 810s for Mythic Plus dungeons in, and so yesterday. I like logged in. I'm jet lagged, so I'm waking up early, and it was daylight savings, so I'm like 4 hours ahead. I logged in at 10 a.m. and I'm like, let's go, like gamers, we're gonna get started instead of getting started at like 9 o'clock at night or whatever. And so I was thinking a little bit about that. I was like, when am I gonna have a? And then so next week is the launch of Sorry We're Closed, right? One of my big games is coming out. Um, and I was just like, when am I gonna get like a good moment, a good free moment to hang out and play a little Veilguard? And the answer is, who knows? Maybe then.
yeah, no, that sounds about right. You mentioned Diablo. Have you been playing any Diablo?
No, I want to. I really want to play Vessel of Hatred. I want to do the new campaign. I really like the story for Diablo 4. And you know me. I'm like the only guy who cares about this shit. But fuck it, I care about it. I'll own it. All right. I'm in a long running. I've been RPing Diablo lore for the past 3 years. Okay, I gotta keep up with all the major developments. Right. I've heard that people like the Vessel of Hatred campaign story, that it's like that it's cool, that it's neat or whatever, but I've also heard that it's like it's crazy, and I have no idea what any of that means. I'm trying to keep myself sort of like unspoiled to take in the
Sure.
campaign as it comes.
I won't spoil anything for you, but I have hit level cap. I beat the campaign. I am like 80 or so Paragon levels in, I think. And I've just been like running through the loop. It's fun, right? Like it's slowly putting a build together. A friend of the cast, Monic, was telling me that he went real hard on it, and like there's like a couple of bugs apparently that make like this one Spiritborn build just like that build is like an order of magnitude better than any other build you can do because it just takes advantage of some weird interactions and some weird bugs in the stuff to do, like doing like trillions of damage or something like that. So, um,
Listen, that just happened in World of Warcraft. Did you
wait,
hear about
really?
the bug? So there was an ability called coup de grace, which is in the outlaw subtlety tree, hero tree. Coup de grace is an ability that you build it up slowly, and then when you get it, your next um, finishing move fires as if it used 10 combo points instead of 5, which is like, whoa, 10 combo points, impossible to do that, right? And there was a bug where an outlaw rogue built up coup de grace a critter, I think, and then swapped to Fatebound, which is the other it's the
The
other
other,
tree in Outlaw. And then every finishing move you use is a 10 combo point finishing move, right? So you had Outlaw Rogues just doing heinous levels of DPS. And it was a bug that was so bad. It was only up for like 2 or 3 days or whatever, but it was so bad that like the highest Mythic Plus key in the world was a plus 16 that was completed by like a tank and healer and 3 outlaw rogues, and it's stuff like that. And it's just taking advantage of this like weird fucked up interaction.
fun, very fun. So yeah, did you and Dave take advantage, or were you in
No,
Montreal the
I
whole?
told them not to. I said it's an exploit. I was like, don't do it. You'll get banned. The runs won't count. That, you know what I mean. They'll get rid of your ill-gotten gains. And I was right. They did in fact like roll all that stuff back. But that was my position. I've honestly been having like the time of my life. This might be one of my favorite Myth Plus seasons kind of ever. I made the swap to tank, which is kind of crazy. We made the swap to tank, and I am surprised how happy I am. Have I talked about this on the cast?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I've explained this to a couple of people, and so I realized I'm getting in the groove of my explanation. The thing, it's kind of wild how much this matters to me, but the thing that really matters to me is that I really wanted to play Mountain Thane. The Mountain Thane hero talents for Warrior is only for Fury and Prot, and Baron is traditionally an arms warrior, so I was playing Colossus, and I like Colossus. Colossus is a good one. I actually quite like all of the hero talent trees. There really hasn't been a stinker that I've found in the warrior group of trees. But Baron is canonically, he's a mountain. He has those Mountain Thane abilities. It's like part of his RP. It was a big part of his thing that I went through this whole storyline with with Warren's dwarf, where Warren's dwarf taught Baron how to use these abilities that are traditionally Mountain King abilities, Thunderclap or whatever else. And so, it just I was like, I thought so when the idea was like, hey, what would it be like if you tank it? I was like, who knows, whatever. But like the mesh of my sort of vision for what Baron the character behaves like, sort of in the game state, and what his character is like in the story, the narrative of my head, is just much more satisfying than I really thought it would be at the time. And so I've really gotten into I don't know I've really gotten into tanking. I also think part of it is that Warrior has a really fun. This is the most that Warrior tanking reminded me of Warrior tanking the end of Battle for Azeroth, which was like that was when warrior tanking was so insanely fun. This was like the goated period of warrior tanking. And so I don't know. I'm into it. It's a lot of fun.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, no, I am on the other end of things. I've been enjoying War Within, but it's like enough that like I do a handful of delves, and I think I've maxed out the delve tracker already. Um, and then I on Saturdays do the fishing contest. And that's basically it. And I'm happy with my week, right? And then raid, right? And I'm happy with my week,
Yep.
and um, I can go play Diablo, or I can go play Deadlock, which I'm still enjoying, right? Deadlock is still great. Although I'm getting into that kind of like crunchy kind of like, oh, I have to start like optimizing how I play now, right? Like,
That's when it gets that's tough.
yeah, maybe I will jump back to Street Fighter at some point if I get tired of doing that, especially on my own, right? Like, um, but it's still a good time there. But like World of Warcraft is enough of my time that it's fun, but not so much of my time that I feel obligated, right? Like, and I've been doing, like, I bought 2 or 3 sets of the armor, of
Oh,
the
really?
yeah.
Wow.
Because there's like you get 8 from like the Azeroth weeklies. It's kind of trivial now, or not the Azeroths, from the War Within weeklies. Eight of the bronze tokens. Um, it's just a matter of popping in every once in a while. I need to remind myself to pop in on the half hour um to get like interactions with Lord Master Cho. That way I can get the meta achievement. um,
Did you see that they're adding a meta achievement for Battle for Azeroth? Or no, yeah, for Battle for Azeroth.
really?
Yeah, there. Do you remember Johnny, the little raptor? Not really, like um, the trash Loa.
Oh yeah. Vaguely, yeah.
That's what the mount is. It's a mount that transforms you into Johnny, the little trash Loa you can run.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
But yeah, it is a little pet project. It seems like where they're going back in time and adding in. I mean, I call these the platinum achievements, right? Adding in the platinum achievements for the expansions. I think it's pretty neat. I feel like I'm gonna end up. I traditionally don't like going back in time like that, right? Like if I want to do things when they're current, you know what I mean? I hate the feeling of like going in and one-shotting everything and all that stuff. Like that's not fun, all that fun for me. But I really like the idea of this kind of I don't know, this like going back in time and getting these old mounts that are like unique and interesting.
Yeah, very cool. I totally get that. Yeah. Uh,
And I can also see because the other thing is in 10.0.7, she's adding a new outdoor zone called the Siren Isle. In 10.0.7, they're adding the first of the meta achievements for War Within, which I actually like quite a lot, right? That they are preempting you with what the achievements for the platinum are going to be, right? I kind of like the idea that once the final patch drops, I will have already completed the intervening sort of steps, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
No, that makes sense. You can do some of it while it's current content instead of like for the last one. Like I was obsessively checking calendars to see when like different rotations were up, so I could fucking get the.
Yes. I mean, listen, I did that too, right? It took forever, but and then the way that I was doing it was all degenerate fuck because I was so overpowered that I was pulling just like massive herds of elites and then just AoEing them all down, which is kind of the thing that I'm trying to get away from, right? I like doing this stuff when it is, like I said, yeah, like
When it's challenging.
so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Um, but yeah. What else, man? I don't know. I just been kind of vibing with my game, my live service games, right? I was gonna say I wasn't planning on playing Stalker on launch, but it's on Game Pass, so I will play it on launch, I guess. Oh, I played Black Ops, right? Black Ops
Oh yeah,
6.
how's that
It's
go?
Call of Duty, right? Like it was fun for a little while, but like I felt like the gun selection was a lot less than I was expecting, right? Wasn't great. I'm thinking they're probably going to introduce a lot of those in like the season passes because I have it on Game Pass. I get like the base version for free, but I played it enough that I'm done with it. I don't care. I don't need to level up 1,000 weapons. I can level 30 more. Excuse me. Um. But like Stalker 2 is coming out in like a couple weeks, but it's on Game Pass day one, so I will play it because it's on Game Pass. But I wasn't gonna play it otherwise, right? I was like, I'll wait for these games to be done before I play them, right? And the only reason I got Veilguard on launch is because they were offering it like buy 6 months of GeForce Now, get Veilguard free, and so I was like, I'll give GeForce Now a shot, and we'll see if I end up using it any amount and if it's worth it or not. But
Huh.
uh,
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested in this. I remember the original Soccer. I never played it, but I remember that it was a thing when we
yeah,
were
it was a
kids,
cult
right?
classic. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, it is a pretty hardcore RPG, so we'll see. Um, or it was originally. We'll see if it keeps that spirit moving forward. Oh, I also played the Monster Hunter Wilds beta, which actually pretty awesome. Um, uh, I don't know. I feel like you would like Monster. I feel like you would both like. I feel like one, you would like playing zombies in Black Ops. Like that seems like
Oh yeah.
your
The
thing.
that was like maybe the first one of these PvE shooters I ever got into was playing zombies with Barry actually. Because
Okay.
Barry and I would play zombies on the Xbox 360 that I think he had, or maybe it was his PS3. And we would just hang out in his hotel room, his dorm room, play zombies like all.
Yeah, no, I never really got into zombies, but apparently zombies in the new Black Ops is very good for people who like zombies. And
Okay. I
and
mean,
then
listen, I'm a Game Pass enjoyer, so it is possible that I will actually play it and play this Call of Duty game because I'm normally not a Call of Duty gamer.
and then in February, Monster Hunter Wilds comes out, and it's good, right? Like it's beat up some animals, take their parts, build weapons and armor out of it. Apologies to the vegans, I guess.
I do love that feeling. This is one of the things that has really kept me into sort of like WoW is getting a bunch of alts up, getting somebody for each profession, right? I'm inventing every day on my, I'm going and playing Cliffgrove, my hunter, uh, who is an engineer, and I don't know, I just love inventing. And like I don't think I'm gonna have more than one engine. My expectation, I have three blacksmiths to specialize immediately in 3 different sort of like areas, right? But generally speaking, of each of the other professions, I'm probably only going to have one or two. Like I might get a second leather worker just because there's a lot of points for the leather working tree. But that is, that feeling of, oh, I need to craft this. Well, I'll just get this from, like, oh, I am already skinning the beast fang from the whatever the rare or something, and I'm just gonna take that and put it into, like, and I'm gonna make my own sword out of it. Like that's a great feeling. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And Monster Hunter. It's a little bit, um, it's a little bit. It's kind of like the weapons and the armor tend to be themed around specific like specific animals, right? Like so, like you will get the set from the thing that you kill, but and you'll build it up. But it's still fun, and like I have decided to go with hunting horn this time around. You like the starter hunting horn. It's like it's a giant saxophone that you beat animals with and then wave around and play songs out of. It's great. Um, it's hilarious and I love it. But it's coming out in February, so I'm looking forward to that. But that's basically all the things I've been doing. Otherwise, just standard kind of watching YouTube video stuff. And nothing in particular. I think that I'd care to call out. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, or should we jet out of here?
We can have a normal 90-minute podcast in our fucking lives.
Yeah, we can have a 90-minute podcast when we give up on the main topic a half hour.
I will bring it back around. One thing I quite liked about Venom, less than 2 hours.
Yeah,
beautiful. I feel like I have not seen a less than 2 hour movie in quite a long time, and I have watched some movies recently that I am just like, why was this more than 90 minutes? Right? Like I watched this Mark Ruffalo movie called Dark Waters. Have you heard?
Yeah, that's like the oil rig one, right?
It's the Teflon one actually.
Oh, okay.
It's the one. It's Mark Ruffalo,
oh yeah,
lawyer, representing the people in West Virginia who are getting heinously poisoned with this chemical, this like Teflon chemical or whatever. That was a 90-minute movie stretched by like 45 minutes, and I wanted to shoot myself. I was like, this movie could have been so much quicker. It was also very moralistic, which I don't like in these.
Yeah.
I think Oppenheimer has put me in this mood, actually, funnily enough. I like these procedural, legalistic kind of movies, but I don't like them when they're moralistic, right? And that is a movie that is constantly beating you over the head with like, the good people of Appalachia are getting poisoned by this chemical conglomerate. Oh, it's just like, like I do feel for that. I care, but like that's not what's interesting to me in a certain sense. The thing that I think is interesting is the legal sort of route that they took to get there. And Dark Waters has the most boring one of all fucking time, which is they got all the documents in discovery and then sued. It's like there's what I mean? Like that's it. Like the twist and turn is um the discovery, they flood them with documents. They get they try and sort of shut down the lawsuit in a way, by answering discovery by just boxes and boxes and boxes of paperwork, and then the eureka moment in it is, oh my god, they gave me everything I needed to hang them, right? Because they didn't think that this one lawyer was going to be crazy enough to actually go through and catalog all of the documents just like turned over or whatever, which frankly is not impressive. Which maybe just because I've seen Better Call Saul, it's just not it's like I'm not impressed by.
Yeah.
Oh yes, they gave you the documents they were legally obligated to give you, and then you use that to put their balls in a vice. I'm happy. Chemical plants who are intentionally poisoning people, not really intentionally, who are poisoning people as a byproduct and know about it, but they're not regulated, so they just keep letting it happen because it would be a huge pain to clean up. Like, yeah, I want those guys to lose. Those are the bad guys, but like, there's just like nothing more interesting going.
Yeah, you know what's like a 90-minute movie that does that and involves discovery as a key point? My Cousin Vinny, which we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Great answer. That is a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that sounds about right, right? Like, I'm just thinking, like, that's also the, type of thing where in like the next couple of years, you're going to take all of your discovery documents and zoop it into like an LLM, and it's going to spit it, and you're going to ask it questions about the documents that you fed into it, right? Like thousands of like low-level attorneys out of jobs, right, or something like that.
Well, the funny thing about that is, and I know I understand on a certain level this is illegal, right? And nobody would intentionally do illegal shit. But don't they just shred that stuff? Like that's what seems to be like it almost makes it seem like DuPont were fucking morons for complying with the request for discovery. You know what I
So
mean?
it's one of those things where like if companies have retention policies that specifically have an end limit on them, although, okay, I can't talk about this because this affects my current employer. But there's
Podcast. End the podcast. Cut me off. Okay, I don't want. God, who's the Google guy? I don't even know the Google guy.
Sundar Pichai.
Oh, really?
He's
Okay,
the CEO.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's there's some retention stuff there. It's a whole thing I have to go through compliance for, right? So like,
Interesting. So
Yeah.
there are laws that you have to like
there,
have these documents.
there are best
in case-
practices, and then there are laws, and then there are like, liability, right? Like, so the big version that I can't talk about because it's not about us is like part of how the Netscape lawsuit happened with Microsoft was that like basically or there was part of it was that there was a group of people at Netscape that had a mailing list where they just like bitched about stuff, right? And they got subpoenaed for that. And it wasn't like, I think the worst of it was blunted because he was complying with like the 90-day like wipeout policy or whatever. But like, it's one of those things where like companies don't want to hold on to stuff because that stuff gets pulled, and sometimes it's not even relevant, right? Like, you know what? Again, probably shouldn't say anything, but that's there. People get rid of stuff because things could be taken out of context. Things could be taken in context and they could be bad. That all that nonsense.
this
right?
is like Watergate stuff. I mean, whatever. We don't have to get into it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
End the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. With that, we say if you'd like to email us about anything we talked about this podcast, email us derpsgames@gmail.com or derpsplaygames.com. Jesus. You can rate and review us on iTunes wherever you find podcasts. Look us up. All of our stuff's in the description. But you have anything else you're looking to promote?
Next week, Sorry We're Closed, coming out.
Woo.
On PC. Big ups. Play it. That's it.
All right. With that, I'm going to say until next time, dear listener.
Until next time, loyal listeners.